Harris.
And I'm Elizabeth Keene, and we are two brown chicks changing the face of therapy on both sides of the couch. Come on, Ebony. How many episodes in are we?
Because you like to sing and you like to do a different tune.
I just follow my lead. Follow my lead.
Follow the song I created this time. Got it. All right. We are back with another episode. We are well into Minority Mental Health Month, so we're excited to have the guests that we've had so far and the guests that we'll be having coming up. And today we have Nick Hardy with us, who we've met, I guess, officially earlier this year. We knew you were. I feel like you came into like the counseling and like, I was like, oh, he's already got the professional pictures. Like you came in ready. Most of us are like putting it together as we go.
I was working on it during COVID.
There you go.
So we're excited to talk to him about men and relationships. We've had plenty of conversations line about this just because we all are relationship therapists and love working with couples. And so excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, and he's a unicorn, right? Like in the field. Because to begin with, there are very few Black and brown people in the field, and there are even less Black men in the field. So give it up for Nick.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining. So can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into therapy, and about your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Nick Hardy, again, licensed therapist here in Houston, Texas, run a private practice. So how I got into the field actually was a while back. I say over 10 years ago. I actually started out as a caseworker. And so I knew I wanted to be a therapist, but, obviously you got to go to school and all of that.
Right.
But just always had a passion for talking to people. Right. And it was something that I knew deep down, like, man, I really want to be a therapist. But this is before mental health really kind of caught on. So at the time I was kind of like, man, I don't want to be social work, right? It really wasn't cool. It wasn't sexy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of trepidation on my end, right? In terms of just going full throttle. But once I just embraced it and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And this is what I'm going to do. The rest is history. Yeah. And so that was over 10 years ago. Again, like I say, my practice has been open for about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. It's me and it's another young lady named Kiera McShine Gregory as well, too.
Okay. Awesome.
And we're so glad that you did choose to go in the field because your voice, your perspective, just your presence alone is so needed in this field, and again, what we're talking about, we wanted to bring you on because we wanted your perspective and we wanted your insight. And what we want to talk about are some of the myths out there about men in relationships. So today's podcast is going to be a little different than what we normally do. We're going to have a little kind of like, is that true or is it a myth type of situation? We want you to debunk these myths, Nick.
Right.
So are you up for the challenge?
I am. For a second, I thought you were going to say truth or dare. And I was like,
that's our after hours.
Right. We ever start a Patreon, we'll do that.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Therapist, truth or dare. Yeah. Oh, I think I like that.
After dark. Like, let's have the real conversations, right?
Ooh, you know what? We on to something. Yes.
Right.
All right. Well, Nick is ready to speak for all men today.
I'm the representative, right?
Yes, that's how this works.
Okay. So let's get into it. We know that we all understand that there are exceptions to the rules, and some of these myths are myths that we really go and we take as truths, and it impacts our relationship. So the first one is men only care about looks. Is that true or is that a myth, Nick?
Well, that's definitely not a myth, but it's not 100% true, right? So
it's truth-ish,
true
or mythish.
Well, yeah, but then I'm like, well, so here it is when it comes to looks. So looks are important, right? Men are visual creatures. Even before I get to know you, right, there has to be something that says, hey, this is someone I want to approach, right? I think where the biggest myth is, and I think there's more myth than truth, right? When it comes to that question. I think where the myth is that when you think about looks, it's like an IG model, or it's this someone who is just built like a model or perfectly shaped, and they're flawless. And I don't think that's the case, right? I do think looks are important, but I don't think they're important to the point of excluding everything else about a woman, right? I don't think they override. Like if you got a bad attitude but you look good, like it's only going to get you so far, right? And so I think there's more to the equation. Looks is a part of that equation, but it's not the entirety, right? And I think sometimes, even from a relational perspective, at least what I see when people are dating, they put so much emphasis a lot of times on the external and not enough on the internal, right?
Right.
Even when people are going through breakups, and a lot of times I hear them comparing. They're like, "Look at her and look at me," and it's like, well, that was only part of the equation, right? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other factors, but the internal part of who we are is more important than the external. It doesn't mean it's not important, right? It's just not as important as I think the media makes it out to be.
Okay. So what you're saying are men are not that shallow.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we don't give men enough credit.
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah, yeah. Not. Yes, it's important. It's what catches your attention. But I like what you said also. What is the standard of looks that you think we are only drawn to? Right?
Right.
Like that it's not this, you don't have to be Meg the Stallion. It would
Yeah.
help.
Right.
Yeah.
But men are, give us more credit is what you're
Give us
saying.
more credit. And to that point, I'll say this. I've been out with my friends, and one of my partners will be like, "Oh man, she's bad. Man, look at her." And the rest of us will be like, "Man, no." And then somebody else will be like, "Oh man, she look." So it just, I mean, we like different things, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, I mean, again, we just it box good looks into one category. And I don't think that's true.
Right. And I like that you made that point, because that's what I was thinking. I've also heard, but I always think about, are we talking about like teenagers, 20s, 30, like things evolve as you grow up and get a little bit more mature. But, I've always heard like guys will sometimes surpass what they are attracted to because they don't want to be clowned by their boys, right? So they might not talk to someone that they find physically attractive because I don't want my boys to talk bad about me. But it sounds like you're saying like, we might say that, but they still gonna be like, well, I think she's bad, so that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think I definitely, to your point, I think it depends on the age and where someone is. You get to a certain level of grown, you like, bro, I don't care what you think.
Right. I like it. Right. So what about the myth that men want to do the chasing, they want to be the pursuers when dating or in a relationship?
I think initially that's true, right? Yeah. Again, I mean, obviously it's not everyone, but I think initially there's something that awakens a man's in spirit, right, when he pursues a woman. Now, again, I think if you've been in a relationship, there may be times where you want her to pursue or show interest at a certain level, but initially, I think that's true, right? I think it just yeah.
Okay. Men
I mean,
said,
I don't want to say. I mean, I don't want to say we're hunters, right? But men are like, you like, man, you see something you like, you go after it, And so, yeah.
yeah. So Nick said, if I see you out, let me talk to you first. Except no, because I'm taken. But right, Nick said, if I was available, let me do the pursuit. Okay. I can see. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I could see how some of that too, even with socialization, how men are socialized to be very goal oriented, right? Like, let me go, get out there, what have you. And I have heard like the other side where men have sometimes voiced, we feel the same, we feel the pressure. We also like to feel pursued or what have you. So yeah, I think again what you're saying, like from your perspective and what you've lived, this is what you see more of.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it also, I was thinking about It also depends on like how long you've been out there, right? How long you've been single. I
Mm-hmm.
think, in the beginning, you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to go out and get as many numbers as I can get, or I'm going to talk, like it's, I'm talking to women that I'm interested in, but it's not necessarily, like you said, Elisa, with a goal necessarily. But if you've been, I think after like years of being single, then you may not do that anymore. You might not be going out getting a lot of numbers. It has to be somebody like, oh no, she kind of piques my interest in this way, or, I'm interested in this person because of this, and that's why I'll go out and pursue. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
think it sounds like you're saying, like, for the most part, there is something around like doing the work to be with someone in the beginning. It's there.
Absolutely. I think you can still show interest, right? But like taking that lead role to show like, hey, I am pursuing you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the onus falls more on the man initially, right? Now I'm old school.
Interesting.
So,
You're
let me say that I'm from the South.
caveat.
You contextualize it, right?
Okay. All right. What about this myth is that men are afraid of commitment? Why y'all scared?
Yeah. I think I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, that's not true, right? But I really think that's a myth, right?
Okay, say more. Say
I
more. The
know.
people want to know why is this a myth?
Yeah, I think it's a myth, right? Because now, caveat, I think when a man commits, right, and who he commits to are important, right? But I think commitment as a whole, on average, I don't feel as if men are afraid of it, right? Now, again, if we're talking, a man that's 22, possibly, you know what I mean? Or someone who really hasn't figured out who they are as an individual, right? Then yes, I could see there being some friction with their willingness to commit. But if I were to say myth or, truth, I would say myth, right? Now, you're going to have some brothers out there. It don't matter how old they are, what they got going on. They just afraid of commitment, right? But if you pay attention, you can spot them out, right?
Yeah.
But on average, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There will be the people that maybe are not even necessarily afraid. They just don't want to commit, right? Like I like my life without having to be limited to one person.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with that is really the honesty around it, because I do feel like there is, I feel like when I've talked to guys or worked with men, like once they decide, they decide. Like that's pretty much like, this is who I'm going to be with, and that's what I want to do, right? And I don't think we give them enough credit for that. That's where they're at. But I do feel like, to your point, Elisa, if someone is like, that's just not for me right now, or I haven't found a person, or I'm just not interested and I have other goals, it does come down to like, are you being honest about it, right? Are you being like, and I think sometimes some women, right, don't like to accept that honesty. Well, we're hanging out, like obviously you want, and it's like, nope, this is nice and I enjoy it, but that does not mean I'm ready for that commitment. And sometimes when men are being nice, we don't listen to the words they're saying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Some people, it's not even about them being afraid. They just don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
So is it a truth or a myth that men are not emotional at all?
Whew. This is kind of one of the middle ones, right? All right. So I don't think that men aren't emotional, right? I think that part is myth. But I think how men express themselves emotionally is very different.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. You said I don't think that men are not emotional.
Yeah.
Oh, men are emotional.
I think they are, right?
Men are emotional. Okay. They just express it.
Men have emotions.
Right.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good.
We started the baseline, right? Men have emotions. Now, is it going to look the same way that it looks, say, for a woman on average? No. Right? Are men always the best at articulating it? No. Right? But that doesn't mean that they're not affected emotionally by certain things that happen throughout the course of a relationship. Right? In fact, I mean, and I'm going on a limb here, right? Men in some cases are more emotional, right? And this is what I mean. You think when a man gets hurt, right? Like our bounce back isn't the same, I mean, like when he really loves and say a woman does something that really hurts him at the core, right? Now he may masquerade those emotions in a number of different ways that may be unhealthy. He may silence and just shut off from the world. But the fact that he's unable to bounce back shows a certain degree of emotion, right? In terms of how he's affected. So yeah,
Can you describe what that, because I know, I already know. So and I will say a lot of what we're talking about is is relates more to cisgendered heterosexual relationships.
yes,
I
yes,
want to recognize that is
absolutely.
and I know that the individuals that are out there who maybe they've been with somebody and they're like, well, he could just move on, and it's like
Mm.
he didn't even care or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, so what does that look like when you say they have a harder time bouncing back? What might that look like?
Yeah, in terms of getting, I would say it looks like you not giving the woman after the same chance as you gave the woman before, and not
Interesting.
being able to trust and love at the same level. I think it takes longer. Right. Now,
Mm.
again, I'm generalizing here. Okay. So
Right,
don't
right.
nobody go take this as a gospel truth, right? But
Right,
Right.
right, 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 right.
and Dr. Nick said, no,
Right.
Right, right, right.
it's my case
Gotta cut
situation.
that piece, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously. So that's what I mean when I say bounce back,
Yeah,
right? I mean, again, you may not see it publicly. A lot of times,
that part.
to our
Mm.
earlier question, right, and them not being wanting to commit, a lot of times that hasn't always been the case, right? They may have started out very hopeful, got hurt, and weren't as optimistic moving forward, right? And again, it just goes to that inability to bounce back. And I think there's a number of factors, right? When you start thinking about support, you have to be open in order to get help and healing. And a lot of times, if we shut down, um, that's not as likely, so the wounds go deeper. I think just how we've been conditioned, I mean, there's a number of different things that go into why a man may not bounce back as quick, right?
Yeah.
But I just think on average we don't.
That
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. I'm also thinking about how we socialize young boys, especially black and brown boys,
Mhm.
with not even the languaging for what it is that one is feeling
Mhm.
and how to work through that. So that makes sense where it's like I'm feeling this pain, I'm feeling affected, but I have to kind of either detach from it or shove it down.
Mhm.
Of course, that's going to make it more difficult to connect with others moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying men might be more emotional, because this is something that I feel like working with couples, it's always labeled, well, she's so emotional, but it's because she's speaking and expressing her feelings where they may not. And a lot of times what I'll end up seeing is they express it, it's just not in, like you said, the same way, right?
Mhm.
It might be, I'm gonna be real short with you. It may be, I'm going to avoid the conversation, or I'm going to basically make you sound like you're making a big deal out of it because I don't want to have to deal with my emotions, right? All of that. And so that's still emotional. You're still showing it. It's just not in a conducive or like a productive way, right? And because, as Elisa said, if you're only limited to be allowed to show anger, happiness, that's it. Like that's all you're supposed to show in public areas or around people. Then you learn how to just kind of be like, either I'm angry, I'm happy, or I feel nothing. But even at feeling nothing, if you're not talking to me for 3 hours, are you still kind of being emotional? Like that's
Yeah,
it's happening. You're having emotions, but you're just not yelling, screaming, or crying, or that type of stuff. So
absolutely.
we have to understand that it's still there. And I think it's good for men to recognize that and women to recognize that they still have feelings, because women are also label it, right? If they do show
Mhm.
emotion, then it becomes like, oh, you're weak. Men ain't supposed to, and it's,
Mhm.
so we have to get away from all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Everybody wants to know, Nick. Just make this clear once and for all of us. Men only care about sex.
Ooh.
The spotlight is on you, Nick.
It is. Yeah, I'm gonna phone a friend and call a sex expert. No. So I think it's another myth. Okay, I think it's another myth, but I'm just similar to the looks. I'm a I'm gonna try to dissect it, right?
Wait,
So
so you said it's only a myth.
I think it's a myth that men only care about sex. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
However, sex is important, right?
Semicolon.
And it, like in a committed relationship, right? You know what I'm saying? Even if it's not, I think men want sex, right? Period. I think where it gets tricky is even a good man wants sex, right?
That's interesting.
Yes.
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 That's interesting why you said that. Yes.
You know, and so I think a lot of the challenge comes in, you know, and it takes two to tango, but really setting some boundaries on what you're comfortable with and what you personally believe in when it comes to engaging in sex, right? But to use a man's desire for sex as a barometer as to whether or not he's a good man, I think is misleading, right? Because hell, we like sex. You know, it's one of the biggest complaints I hear among married couples. Man, we're not having sex enough, or it's not invigorating. It's not, you know, like it used to be, right? And so I don't think that that's only right, and I think that's where a lot of times we fall short relationally because let's say you do have sex, but don't check the box in other areas, and then there's still this emptiness, and then a man leaves and you say, oh, you know, and sometimes this is the case where he just use you for sex, right? But then sometimes it's like, but there was still other aspects, right, that may have been missing relationally, you know. And so I think men do want sex, right? um but I don't think that's it. I really don't. And especially when you look in terms of a long-term relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right, sex is definitely not going to get you that, you
Right.
know.
Right. And I
Yeah.
like because that's as you were talking, I was thinking dating or partnered, right? Those are
Right.
two different things, right? And
Right.
so you might have to have certain boundaries when it comes to dating. You might have to say, like, you know, I understand sex is important, but I want to make sure we have connection on other parts and things like that. And I also feel like when I'm thinking about partner, because just like you said, it's a lot of conversations around like we're not having sex as often, or um, you know, it doesn't feel like she's as into it or he's whatever is
Mhm.
really desiring me and all that kind of stuff. And I also wonder like I often talk to men about like what is the value that you put on sex, right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm not able to express or I'm not expressing love and care in other ways, or I don't feel like I get it in other ways, sex might be the way that I feel cared for and I feel
Mhm.
loved. And so sometimes I think to your point, we start to say, oh, you only want sex, that's all you care about, because then I could just throw that over there and say that shouldn't be that important when you haven't even tapped into what is the value of sex to that person, because it might mean a lot more than just an orgasm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we overlook the connection part of it too, right? And a lot of times, again, if we just stop at sex, then we miss this is one way that I feel connected to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of what I have found, like in the work that I've done, is if we go back to that part where men may not know how to connect always emotionally, a lot of the times this is the one way that they do feel most connected to their partner. Um, and I also think that we don't give men a lot of credit because I will often hear complaints around um, when again this happens. I mainly see this in cisgendered heterosexual couples where there's the complaint that he wants it and she does not want it as much, and then she's like, well, fine, just like get it over with, and he's like, I don't want it like that, right?
Yeah.
So again, kind of like he does want you to also take pleasure in it, and I think that's
Right.
one of the things that sometimes, again, because we think, oh, all you care about is sex. Well, like to what you said, Ebony, many of them don't see it as just sex, but this is our point of connection. This is our point of enjoying one another. So, working sometimes with them to expand other ways that you can also feel connected. Because if this is the only way you feel connected, well, then that's, we got to get some balance here too. But Nick, you have debunked the myth that
Okay.
men
That's the test.
only care
To be good
about
at this
sex.
one.
Yes, that is not true. That's not, they care about it, but it's not all they care about.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. So I think we have time for at least one more question. Okay. Finish this sentence, Nick.
Mm.
When men are able to blank, they make better partners. Look.
I had to think.
I'm putting the dramatic music.
I know, right? Think about it. So I'm going to say, and this isn't one word, right? It's more of a like a just a statement. I think when men are able to live out their purpose, they make better partners.
That is good, Nick. Woo! That is good.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. Because that didn't even cross my mind, which
Yeah.
obviously I'm not a man, so there's that. But it didn't even cross my mind, and I think that makes sense though. It makes sense. It's the fulfillment, right? It's that, yeah.
There's so much that comes with operating with a sense of purpose in life, right? One, I think you can provide support for other people because you operate from a place of confidence, you know? So that's one. Two, I think there's a monetary benefit. You know, when you enjoy what you do, you're willing to invest in it, and you grow. And when you grow in a particular area, a lot of times you're compensated for it. So that offers a certain level of security, right? You think about directionally, right? You're like, hey, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going. I mean, you just operating from purpose. And it's a lot easier to get behind purpose and support purpose than it is you like here, you there, and then you're all over the place, or you feel like you don't have a purpose, right? And so yeah, I think there's a peace that comes about when you operate from purpose as well too, right? So when you're partner with someone who has a certain peace, like that transfers to you, you know, and so it just makes for a good spouse, you know. And I don't think we talk about that enough, but I do think purpose is fundamental to a lot of other issues that show up in relationships.
That's really good. That is
That's
really,
good.
really good.
That's
I like
good.
that.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our normal questions, our final questions. And we didn't talk about therapy a lot. Obviously, you have a practice, and so you have a lot of experience working with individuals and couples. Tell us, why do you think therapy is dope?
Yeah, well, therapy I think is dope because I mean, man, one, it's just you investing in your own emotional and health, right? And I think when you like own your own development, like that's dope, right? Like you're a better friend, you're a better spouse, you're a better coworker, like you're better everything, right? And so therapy is one of the outlets that feeds that growth, right? And so it's just dope because it just makes you a better human being.
Love it.
That's great.
And why, Nick? Why are you a dope therapist?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, it's tough because now I'm like about to brag on myself, right? Well,
Yes, do it. That's what
That's
this
why
is
we like to do
about.
it.
Yes.
Right? Okay. I really think I'm a dope therapist because I mean I'm myself, right? Like I bring the experience, I bring all the education, all of that, but there's thousands of therapists around the world who do that. Like I am me. Like if we were, I mean, we wouldn't be, but like if we're at a bar, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you gonna get the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So I think just bringing my authentic self to the therapy session allows for other people to be their authentic self. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's always like when you show up as yourself, then it just creates a space for other people to feel the same. And so that's dope. That's really dope. So obviously people are going to be listening. You're going to get an influx of new people want to work with you. Tell them how they find you, follow you, work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple ways. So one, obviously you can, follow me online on Instagram at Nick Hardy _. So that's NICHARDY _. If you're in the state of Texas and interested in therapy, you can go to nickhardy.com. I also have another therapist. I mentioned her earlier, but she's dope as well. She's another dope therapist, right? And so if you go to my page, I definitely would recommend people reaching out to her as well. Also just started a podcast called Untherapeutic, right? Untherapeutic. So definitely check that out, untherapeutic.com. Listen to episodes that are going to be coming out next week. And so stay connected that way. But yeah, just reach out.
Love it. This was so fun. This was a lot of fun. We got to do this more. And now that I know how to control all the sounds, it is on.
on
on.
board.
It
I didn't
is
know that.
Oh, this is going to take it to a whole new level. Okay.
Well, we do appreciate you for joining us. We are going to make sure to have all of those links down below. Make sure y'all check out his podcast as it comes out. Y'all will hear us at some point on there, so make sure that you're checking it out. And we appreciate just knowing you as a Black male therapist who we trust, to send clients to and all of that. Sometimes that can be few and far between. So we really appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you to everyone that is watching. We appreciate you coming back every single week. You can always follow, subscribe, comment, all of that. We're on YouTube, all of the podcast platforms. And also make sure that you follow us across social media at Melanin and Mental Health, Melanin Health on Twitter. And we also, since it is Minority Mental Health, we have been doing IG Lives, and we will be doing IG Lives every Monday for the month of July, leading up to a free community event that we're having at the end of July 28th at 7 p.m. So look out for the flyers, and we will have a link to sign up for that event in the show notes as well. So we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.
Bye.